Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Today I'll be showing you guys how I customize a Nike swoosh on some Air Force Ones. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then keep on watching. First thing I'm going to do is take out the insole of the left shoe and brand it with my logo. This is something new that I've been doing, and I wish I'd been doing it to all my shoes. This just lets people know who made it and where it came from. You can skip this step if you don't feel that it's necessary, but this is just something that I think adds a special touch to it. The way that I do it is I cut out my logo using my Cricut and some heat transfer vinyl. Then I'm going to take this small iron that I found at a craft store and just iron it onto the sole. Be careful when you're doing this because this iron does heat up very hot. It can end up burning not only the plastic that the heat transfer vinyl is on, but it can also burn the fabric of the insole as well. After the vinyl transfers from the plastic onto the insole, I use a little piece of Teflon sheet just to make sure that it's pressed in there nicely and won't come off once it's worn. Now I'm going to put the insole back into the shoe and relace it as well. Normally when I customize shoes, I take off the laces completely because I'm going to paint the entire shoe, but for this specific project, I'm only painting the swoosh and the heel of the shoe, so I'm just going to relace them now and cover it up with tape to prevent from paint getting onto it. Now that that's all done, we're going to start prepping using acetone. Because I'm only painting the swoosh and the heel, you only need to prep the swoosh and the heel. Don't prep any parts that is not going to be painted on, it's just a waste of time and supplies. I like to go over the areas I'm going to paint with the acetone at least twice just to make sure that I've gotten every inch of the surface and did not leave any factory finish on there, otherwise the paint might not stick as well. Now that we've got it prepped, I like to take a piece of tape and go over all the areas that I use the cotton pad on. This is just to get rid of any of the little fuzzies the cotton pad left. If you leave this on the areas that you're going to paint, it will show through and the surface will not look as smooth. Then I'm going to go in with some frog tape. This is about 2 inches wide. It leaves no sticky residue. It's really easy to use, easy to peel off. You can get it at any of your local hardware stores or you can order it on Amazon as well. When I mask off something like the swoosh, I like to make sure that the tape is as close to the panel as possible and then use this little weeding tool that came with my Cricut machine and just kind of tuck the tape underneath the panel. This just makes sure that the paint only gets on the swoosh and doesn't get on the surface behind it. Because I am going to airbrush the base layer of these panels, I'm going to make sure that I mask it off correctly. If you're going to paint these parts using a brush, you can skip this part if you have a steady hand. Otherwise, it's a good technique to use if you're not as steady. This just prevents you from having to do any touch-ups when you're all done. I like to focus my cutting on the upper edge of the panel, that way it leaves me enough materials to tuck underneath. Again, this just prevents leaving any gaps between the panel and the tape and causing paint to get somewhere you don't want. I'm going to finish taping off the other swoosh and on the other shoe as well just to save us some time. Now I'm just covering up all the other parts that I don't want paint to get on, like the toe, the shoelaces, and the sock line. I use this masking tape that I found off Amazon to cover up the sock line. It does stick very well to fabric. I found that some tapes, like the frog tape, doesn't stick that great to fabrics and it ends up lifting up while you're painting it. Once I've done masking off everything, I stuff it with a grocery bag. Some people stuff it with paper towel, paper, socks, or whatever. This just prevents paint from overspraying into the inside of the shoe. Now I'm going to go in with my Pache airbrush Again, you can skip this step if you don't have one. You can always just paint the base layer on with a paintbrush. I like to use an airbrush, that way it lays on smoothly and more quickly. I'm going to go in with Angelus Direct Leather Paint in the color Saddle and pour just a little bit into my airbrush. I always like to spray just a little bit out before I go in on the shoe, just to make sure it's not clogged or coming out too strong. Then I lay down 2 to 3 layers on each shoe, using a heat gun to dry in between each coat. You want to make sure each layer is thin, that way it just gives it enough time to dry. If it's too thick and then you go in with your next layer, it might not be fully dry all the way, and then the paint could end up cracking prematurely. Luckily, with the heel and the swoosh, these areas don't really crease, so they most likely won't crack. If you're painting the toe box or the area around the laces and it's too thick, once it's creased, it may crack right off. Here I'm showing you what 2 coats look like. It is a little bit patchy on just some areas, so I end up going with a 3rd coat off camera. Now that we're finished painting the base color, I'm going to go in and paint my design using a mixture of vachetta, white, and saddle. For this project, I was specifically inspired by Mexican leatherwork, this bag specifically. For every project that I do, I always sketch it out on my iPad first, just so that when I go to paint the real thing, I have something to work off of, because I'm never copying somebody else's work. Like I mentioned in the beginning of my video, it's great to be inspired by other creators, by other artists. Just don't copy and steal their work. I have had somebody replicate my shoes before, and while I'm honored that they were inspired by me, it did kind of hurt my feelings that they took the entire design that basically got me noticed for the type of work that I do now, and to just copy it and profit off of it is kind of disappointing. So if this is something that you're inspired by, just make it your own. Be original, do your own thing. Be inspired by other artists, just don't copy their work. Now that my rant's over, let's get back into this shoe. So what I'm doing now is just laying down the first layer of the design. It's mostly just line work, there really isn't too much detail to it. I do end up going in with the 2nd layer of this just to make sure that the color of the line work is solid and doesn't have any little see-through patches. Then I go in with this Zem 2200 Golden Taklin round paintbrush that I bought off of Amazon, and I do just some smaller detailed lines that I wasn't able to achieve with the other brush. This is the design after 2 coats of the lighter shade. Now I'm going to go in with the darker shade where I just mix the color chocolate and saddle together to add a little dimension to the design. I'm just going in and not highlighting but shadowing some of the floral patterns just to make it look like it's kind of popping out and make it look like it's really that leather work that's shown on the reference photo that I used. And here is the finished product. In total, I believe this process took me about 5 to 6 hours. That included the prep, painting the base layer, and painting the design on there. And now the last thing that we have to do is protect it with the top coat. A while ago, Angelus Direct sent me their new 4-coat top coats to try out, so I'll be using the finish in satin. With the top coat, no matter what brand I'm using, I always go in with about 2 to 3 layers just to make sure that I've gotten every inch of the customized areas covered and that it's protected and hopefully lasts as long as possible. I always get asked if the paint's gonna come off if it rains or if you can clean the shoes after it's been customized. And yes, you can clean it. It is completely waterproof. It'll last as long as you take care of it. Now, if you scuff them, scrape them on the side of some cement a bunch of times, you know, you're using these as like your playground shoes or you're skateboarding in these, like eventually the paint will scratch off. But for the most part, as long as you take care of them like you would take care of any other expensive pairs of shoes, the paint will last a long time. And now for the most satisfying part, untaping the finished product. To me, this is always the most satisfying part because you just realize how clean your work turned out. Even though the overall design is so simple, it looks so clean and so classic. An all-white shoe with just a hint of color will always make a statement. So after every pair that I always make a reel or a TikTok video on it. So this is the one I made based on these shoes. I still have 4 slots available. If you want this shoe made for yourself, you can get it in whatever size you are. It will take about 4 to 8 weeks to get to you, but I will link it down in the description below if you're interested. Now I'm going to show you guys how I pack my shoe orders. When I first started this small business, I had ordered this tissue paper with my logo on it to use for the shoe boxes. I ordered this from a company called No Issue. They have a whole bunch of custom options for your small business, like tissue paper, shipping bags, packaging bags, custom tape, and so on. I also added some brown laces in there in case they wanted to match their laces with the design. I always put in a couple business cards in there for them, as well as a thank you card and a free sticker. Both my business card and thank you cards are all bought on Vistaprint. I'll link that down below if you want to check it out. This customer also ordered one of my mugs from my shop. This one says Jefa Moves, which means boss moves in English. I made these a while ago using permanent vinyl and my Cricut machine. She also ordered a pair of white socks. It has my bandana logo on there, as well as my name on the bottom of the socks. These are super comfy, super thick, perfect for the winter time. She also ordered a Chula t-shirt in small and a La Raza sneaker keychain. To seal my package, I'm going to use this custom water-activated tape that I got from Sticker Mule. You're able to upload your own design and they make it and ship it to you within about 2 weeks. They also provide a couple sponges for you to use, and all you have to do is just wet them and run them across the tape, and it seals your package. If you guys are interested in ordering any custom shoes from me or this specific pair, you can find them on my website, which I'll link down below, shopmokicks.com. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. My next few videos will show you guys a couple different techniques of customizing some Air Force Ones, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that.